So, Beef is a series that I know you and I have been anticipating. We knew that A24 was producing a limited series that was going to premiere on Netflix. And of course, both Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong are very accomplished actors in their own right, have done some really, really phenomenal work up until this point. And so, Beef comes in as a series that has gotten everybody talking, to say the least. It's certainly made a lot of conversations and has gotten a lot of people interested in what the show was going to be about. And the premise, in and of itself, is interesting when you look at it because it's really about road rage, and it's about an incident between two people that all of a sudden end up in a really, really traumatic situation, which really causes their lives to just spiral completely out of control. And so, again, this conversation has been really, really taking over the internet over the past couple of weeks since the show premiered. But you and I have gotten the chance to check out this new series and have watched all 10 episodes, which are available on Netflix. So, with all of that out the way, man, I will pass it over to you. What did you think about the new limited series Beef?
I feel like it's been a while since I think us as a unit, as a group of people have, I think, come together to watch something that felt like a moment, I think, in time. Because it's been a while since like a Squid Game, or it's been a while for, some of those other shows that just pop up on streaming. Everyone's like, wait a second, this thing might kind of be fire. Really been a second since that's happened. A lot of the popular shows going on nowadays are like weekly on HBO, or people are talking about Love is Blind, right? It's just a big topic right now, which is even that is weekly to some degree, you know what I mean? But it's just been a second since there's been a limited series that everyone hops on board by word of mouth, or whether it's marketing or they've been excited for it. And Beef feels like it has filled somewhat that void, at least so far in 2023. And that we have, man. I think it's rare that we get that, and I can say that Beef has again kind of felt that spot as something everybody hopped onto. And so, man, what a crazy, ridiculous, fun ride, man, with this TV show. There's so many layers, I think, in this limited series of Beef, man, because it is more than even the road rage that you spoke about, right? It's the anger beyond that. It's the what leads to the ridiculousness of these characters, what leads to the crazy moments behind these characters is really those deep and dark impurities, right? That comes from, again, anger from trauma, or really anything under the sun, but something without what it means to not deal with it and then have to deal with it all at once, I think, and what it looks like to snap and to have a breaking point, and two people to be experiencing that at the same time. And so it's a very interesting watch. I've loved every bit of it, man. I know a lot of people have been saying on the internet too, this is Stephen Yeun's best performance. I definitely think it's one of them. It takes me a little bit to evaluate somebody's best performance ever, just because he's low-key been in a lot nowadays, and a lot of good stuff at that. This man, Stephen Yeun, he knows how to pick a project, you know what I'm saying? And so I will admit, though, man, this was a tremendous performance from him. Tremendous performance from Ali Wong too, man, who also has been picking really good projects too. She's on the up and up, and I really, really love her in this as well, man. But this is a one of those shows that I think, you just get and you just understand. We've all been angry at something. We've all potentially snapped at some point in time. But now what is the extreme of that, right? What are the repercussions? More than anything, this TV show is about consequences and how real they can be. And I think that's what makes this TV show so jarring for a lot of people, is we do watch a lot of TV shows that have consequences, but when they're realistic and they hit as home as the way some of these do, and how, again, out of proportion the show can be, it just makes for an interesting story, and it makes for an interesting concept. And so I found myself having again, just such a good time watching this. It's funny, it's dark, there's action. It's just so much, I think, that can be broken down and that can be talked about within the series that means something more than what, again, the tagline of the series is, man. It definitely is multi-layered. And I love how long it is. I love again how well acted it is. I love how it's shot. I love the themes that they touch. There's themes I'm not even talking about that they touch on. There's things about church in here. It's just so much, so much that can really be broken down. But they do it, I think, so well, and they're able to flush everything out. Mostly ways in which that was very satisfying for me, man. So Beef, a moment in time, man. It really is something else. It's and A24 doesn't really do limited series like this either. I think there's something. It is something they're starting to get into and do more. But to me, this is almost an A24 experiment. Like, what does this thing look like if we put this on Netflix? They you know what I mean? And so there was a lot of newness to this coming into here, and I'm glad to know that it felt new and it felt refreshing to watch during the great landscape of TV. It's very competitive right now, and for this TV show to be talked about as widely as it is impressive, man. So I definitely recommend everybody watch Beef if you haven't yet, because I guarantee you something in here you haven't seen before.
I believe this is also the first actual A24 production on Netflix. I could be very much wrong about that, but I believe that this is their first partnership together. And boy, did it turn out incredibly successfully for both parties involved, because I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to end up on most publications and reviewers top 10 list of the year when it comes to television shows, because of how incredible it really is. Because yes, that tagline gets you into the show, because you just kind of wonder, well, how are you going to build out 10 episodes worth of a series talking about a road rage incident? Like, that seems pretty simple, right? But as you noted, it goes so much deeper than that, because our two main characters, played by Steven Yeun and Ali Wong, have so much other shit and so much other baggage that they're bringing to that situation that then unfolds over the course of that 10 episodes, because they're dealing with all sorts of internal frustrations. They're dealing with the lifestyles that they've lived up until the points in their lives in which they cross paths with each other. And what I found most interesting in Beef is the fact that the thing that kind of stuck out to me the most is that, Steven Yeun's character, Danny, is coming from the perspective of not really having any money. He's actually really bad with money. He's not good at managing his money. And then Ali Wong's character, Amy, is coming from a very wealthy and sort of privileged upbringing and background. Like, she's worked really hard for what she has. She's married, very much accomplished, owns her own business, has a family. So they are diametrically opposed in terms of their lifestyles. And so you get to see these two worlds clash, on top of just the actual frustration of the inciting incident that takes them on this just perilous travel and trip down the deepest, darkest places that you just wouldn't have expected at the top of the show. Because we find out that an incident of that nature not only affects the two parties involved, it affects all the people that are around them in their own personal lives: husbands, wives, partners, siblings, parents. Like, everybody gets wrapped up into this weird oddity that they've become involved with. And you just get to see how it all unfolds. And it's absolutely delicious to watch, because you constantly just wonder every episode, how the fuck did we get here? How do we continue to just go into a deeper, darker place every time out? And that's really what I found myself experiencing over the course of watching the series, that these people are dealing with some really terrible circumstances, and they don't know how to necessarily communicate that with each other. And they just resort to anger and frustration, which we have all felt those things, but they let it consume them. They let it take over their lives. And then they ultimately allow it to consume the lives of the people that they hold near and dear to their hearts. Even children get wrapped up into this, which, when stuff like that happens, you're like, my goodness, like, can somebody please put a stop to this? But it never happens. It just gets way deeper, way darker, and even funnier at times as well. There are a lot of comedic elements here. I think that this is sort of a dark, tragic comedy, that you watch unfold, that starts off from like this really rage-fueled incident that becomes sort of tragic by the end of it. And it's one of the most fascinating watches, I think, that you can find in terms of television these days, because those performances are so incredibly strong. The supporting cast is also incredibly strong. And it's really nice to see a story of this nature, have a primarily fronted Asian cast, sort of be represented in that way. They're just normal people, but they end up in this really extraordinary circumstance, and you just get to see them live their day-to-day lives. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, oh my goodness, like, this is almost like a heightened reality because of how crazy things get. But you can also still relate, because I think that we've all seen people in our lives, and we know certain individuals that have allowed situations to just go a little bit too far. And if you just made one different choice, if you just went down a particularly different road, then you probably would have been better off. But unfortunately for our characters here, that is not the course of action that they choose to take. So this is an incredible series. I echo everything you said. It's worth the watch. It's worth the time. And it's definitely, I think, going to be considered one of the best TV shows that we get this year. I do want to just talk quickly about the moments in this series, because there's a lot of shocking shit that happens. Again, when you enter into the show, you see what happens, but then as you progressively continue to watch everything, shocking incident after shocking incident just happens. Pretty much at least one big incident per episode, I would say. And so if you haven't watched Beef, I just want to give a quick spoiler warning. We're not going to give away necessarily too many plot details, but if you don't want to know anything about the show, definitely go watch it and then come back and just finish out this particular piece of the conversation. But I just want to get a sense from you, man, from everything that just occurred. What was something that stood out to you as like either your favorite moment or a shocking moment? There's of course the inciting incident, the road rage incident, but then things just get crazy because you have people committing infidelity, you got shootings, you got home invasions and robberies, you got house fires. Like there's a ton of stuff again that just happened. So what are some of those things that stood out to you as you were watching this?
Man, there's so much. It's crazy. Again, this isn't a long series, but so much goes down that there's so much to pick from, man. One of the craziest, just I don't know, even as crazy as it got, some of that stuff at least gave me a preview into some of the wild shit that was going to happen in a couple minutes, right? If something happens at a house or something, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. Something crazy is about to happen. There's one thing that happens that I did not see coming from the left side of the world. Like there's just no way I could have known this was coming, but it is what happens to Jordan in her own house. This is white woman who is what's Ali Wong's character? I don't know why I'm forgetting.
Amy.
Who was Amy's business partner. And let's just say she oh boy, she bites a bullet. And it is not the way that you see it coming at all. Far left from what I thought was going to happen. That was a crazy moment. One of my favorite moments, I will add though, is honestly the last episode. To me, it brings everything together. It is it's the existentialism of it all. Low key, the last episode feels like everything everywhere all at once. You know what I mean? And the themes that they're talking about, again, existentialism and you as a person, like who what your personality is, where you fit in the universe, what you're meant to do in the all of that stuff, man, all that purpose in the way they do it. And the way they hinted that this moment was gonna happen at some point as well. There's like a shot of just grass every other episode or something like that. And you're like, what is this? Why do they keep showing this? And and so man, it's something about that last episode too that just brings it all together. That's like a nice bow on top that I really appreciate, man. I love when a TV show can get deep and make sense of everything else that happened before it. It was like, oh, here's a conclusion that makes sense and wraps everything up. So I really like that moment as well.
Yeah, I think that final episode, it's actually super emotional, which you couldn't have necessarily predicted because the penultimate episode is so action packed and so many different things happen. People die. People think you think die, actually don't end up dying. Like there's so many different subversions of your expectations that when you get to the final episode, in and of itself, it subverts your expectations, but it goes to a place which does contextualize everything that happened. I'll say that my favorite moment was actually a more quiet moment throughout the series, and it was actually the revelation that Danny had been throwing away the college applications for Paul, his brother. Like he had been getting rid of his college applications, which the whole series, you're just kind of trying to unpack and understand, like, well, how do these two really interact with each other? Like, how much do they love each other? Like, what does this all mean? And you could tell that Danny certainly has like a dominant sort of relationship over Paul, and he has sort of like the controlling element between what makes up the relationship. But when you find that out, you find out that there's even much more deep shit going on with Danny, like much more troubling stuff. It's like, oh, you're kind of holding this guy back. Like you don't, to a certain extent, you don't want to be without him because you also fear for your own existence and what you're able to be capable of in the future and how you're able to navigate the world. So you're gonna hold somebody back that's supposed to be very near and dear to you and do something that is very, very, I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible that he did that. And then how that ties into him revealing that information in the episode, the penultimate episode. And then we think Paul might have got taken off the chessboard only to find out and still not really have clarity that, there are many more things happening in that case, which you just never really get the clear cut answers for, which I'm totally fine with. We don't always need that stuff. Sometimes it just is what it is, right? And that's kind of the nature of the show. It's meant to shock you and meant to, sort of leave you questioning and thinking about that stuff. But yeah, there are so many things that you can just pick apart from and really dissect from this series. It's really worth the watch, and I think worth multiple rewatches. I certainly intend to revisit the show throughout the year as we continue to progress towards the end of the year. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the Netflix limited series Beef. If you've checked out this new show, certainly hit us up and let us know what you think.